Hello and welcome to All Top 5s. The Blair Witch Project was released over 17 years ago to a world that wasn't so familiar with found footage movies. With the recent release of a direct sequel, I thought it was time to look at some of the most interesting bits of trivia and controversy that still haunt the original movie. Number 5. Promotion. It's undeniable that the Blair Witch Project was one of the first movies to use viral marketing as its main form of promotion, and with great success at that. The scale was enormous back in 1999, with a dedicated website that was designed to look real. It offered vast backstory, quotes and dates on the mythology of the Blair Witch, biographies and old photographs of the three actors, dubbed filmmakers, who were supposedly missing, details of the evidence for the Blair Witch, the police investigations, interviews, news articles, and so on. It was seriously convincing, especially as it was one of the first movies ever to take this on, and presented it all as genuine, with no mention of a commercial movie whatsoever. Of course, the claim that the contents of the 81-minute film was all authentic, found footage of a real student project sparked rumours, water cooler conversations, conspiracy theories, and genuine concern amongst people who believed it to be real. This was also fueled by flyers put up by the filmmakers around Cannes in time for the famous film festival, stating that the cast of the film were missing. The three actors had also had their IMDb listings changed to missing, presumed dead, to tie in with this. The posters were taken down a day later though, out of respect, as a TV executive had actually just been kidnapped at that time, though was later recovered successfully. The air of mystery was so successful, the first thing that lead actress Heather Donahue reportedly said to the director when she arrived was questioning whether this was actually a snuff film. Number 4. Box office super success. Whether people enjoyed the Blair Witch Project or not, it was a global success, and perhaps the best way to measure that is box office success. Unsurprisingly, the movie was actually listed in the Guinness Book of World Records as for having the highest budget to box office ratio for a mainstream film. This was because the reported budget of the film was $60,000 to make, and it made back $248 million on release. This astonishing figure translates to $10,930 profit on every dollar spent. That's a profit any tycoon would be pleased with. This is a slightly misleading figure though. While not strictly untrue, as that's what it cost to shoot the film, this doesn't take into account the vast post-production budget of several $100,000 that the studio spent. The studio also spent just over $1 million acquiring the rights to the movie, and a whopping $25 million on top of that to market it. It still turned a profit of about 9 times this revised total budget, but that does put it much more in line with the sort of movie successes you hear about every day. Still though, it went down in history as one of the most successful so-called shoestring budget movies of all time. Number 3. Legacy. Of course, the Blair Witch Project had a lasting legacy that consisted of more than just its monetary success. Although found footage realism-style films had been done before, such as the notorious Cannibal Holocaust in 1980, the Blair Witch Project revived the format and made it its own, and it became a household name for years to come for that reason. Any horror film that came out in the following years that used the style was immediately dubbed Blair Witch crossed with whatever, or if you liked Blair Witch then you'll love this. Paranormal Activity and Wreck are flagship examples of this. It wasn't just strictly horror films either. The style crossed over into more mainstream films like Cloverfield, Chronicle, and Project X. The Blair Witch Project was such a success it spawned an immediate sequel, though it was a poor effort. The found footage style was ditched, and despite an interesting meta take on the first film, it wasn't received well, and it flopped. 16 years later, however, a new sequel, Blair Witch, was released, adopting the spirit and format of the original, but having nowhere near the success of that 1999 film. Who knows, maybe there are plans for more Blair Witch movies in the works. There were less tangible aspects to the legacy as well though. Because of the film's realistic quality, naturally it convinced many people that it was genuine. Lead actress Heather Donahue's mother reportedly received sympathy cards lamenting the loss of her daughter. Some people refused to watch the film as they believed it disrespectful to make entertainment out of the supposed suffering and disappearance of the actors. And finally, Burkittsville in Maryland, USA, where the film took place, received countless visitors wandering the woods and investigating the legend, all of whom at least half believed the mythology of the Blair Witch. Number 2. Believable mythology. Relating to that, the key to the film's success was the excellent, well thought out and entirely plausible mythology. It didn't assume anything too outlandish, and it backed up all its findings with evidence. Well, it's all falsified evidence, but the fact that it was presented as real convinced so many people. Just take the more recent Slender Man phenomenon, which led 2 teenage girls to commit murder. More about this in my top 5 most famous creepypastas video. The way the directors kept information from the actors was very important in convincing the viewers of the film that it was real. Rather than a script, the actors were given a 35-page overview of the Blair Witch legend that, as I've said before, was very well put together. Even though they knew the film was just that, a film, obviously, they went into shooting it believing that there was actually such an urban legend. Additionally, they interviewed townsfolk and locals to the area to get the footage at the start of the film, believing them to be locals that believed in the legend. But what they didn't know was that these interviewees were actually just other actors planted by the directors. It helped convince them that the myth was real though. Almost all lines of dialogue were improvised, and the actors didn't know the plot going into the film, and by halfway through shooting, they presumably fully believed the legend of the Blair Witch. Number 1. Real tensions. Probably the main reason people were so convinced, and why the movie did so well as a found footage film, was that the 3 actors didn't actually have to do too much acting. As far as they were concerned, they were told to walk along a specific path for several days through the forest, even camp there overnight together. The only contact they had with the directors was via occasional walkie-talkie communication, where they were only told where to head next. As such, the actors spent the whole time together, alone. You may have seen programs like Big Brother where regular people are forced to spend extended periods of time alone together, and it inevitably leads to real tension, tears, and arguments. Well, a lot of what you see in the movie stemmed from that. As lines were all improvised, the actors' real emotions and problems with one another fed through and caused clashes. To make it worse, scary events such as tense shaking, a figure appearing in the distance, real human teeth and hair being found, noises of screaming children, and so on, were all orchestrated by the directors, unknown to the actors. So those frightened reactions, screaming and swearing, were all pretty much real. Imagine sleeping in a strange forest and hearing screams, having your tent shaken in the dead of night. As if all that wasn't enough, the directors left the actors with less and less food each day, leaving them hungrier and therefore more likely to feel irritated, isolated, and scared. It must have been a terrifying, grueling experience, all said. And that's it from all top 5s for this week. Whether you liked it or hated it, the Blair Witch Project was a trailblazer in many different areas, and its legacy can still be seen going strong today. What did you think of the original movie? Have you seen the new one yet? Remember to be polite and considerate in the comments. It's much nicer if we all get along and respect each other. If you've enjoyed this video, please do click like, because it really does help me out and helps other people find these videos too. Click subscribe if you'd like to receive a new video every Tuesday when I release it. So peace and love to each and every one of you, and I'll see you all next time on All Top 5s.